Good morning, elders. How are we all? Little wave there, waiting for our last people to come in, and great to see you all. For those I can see. Those I can't see, I can see your name, which is just as good. Now, just as the final people are coming in, and there's a few there to come in, today we're going to be having two different conversations. One, what's going on in the marketplace with your conversation with everyone you meet. So be it vendor or purchaser, I think you would know what I mean, that the marketplace change has changed that conversation. I think we need to be really clear on that today so that we can not only connect with our audience, but get some results and not be working many, many hours and not getting that return on it. But before I get started, any reviews on the market? How are we feeling about the marketplace out there at the moment? I don't know, we're coming up to the election and everything else coming at us, but what's our feel on the market? What do we got?
Lee, if properties are priced well, they're still selling. We're just going to be trying to make sure we're getting pricing right day one. Otherwise, if they're just slightly above, they're really struggling. Yeah.
What a great point. And Brendan, thank you for stepping in there. So key learning of today straight away, or a coachable moment, getting the price right from day one. Now, in a moment, I'm going to do a review on all these things we learn. But as you know, in my style of training, I like to label things so that you can remember it and then bring it back into play as you need it. And all the things we've learned about claiming doors, lib mode, sell mode, they're all labels. As soon as I say those now, you're like, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. But getting the price right from day one has never been more important than it is right now. And Brendan, what's changed in your conversation with the owner to achieve that outcome of getting price right from day one?
Well, I think for me, it goes straight to the motivation of the vendor and where they're going once they sell it. And then having those conversations and using case studies of properties we have or had. People think the market's dead until you price a property well, and then you get 70 people there in the first 2 weeks. So, you know, it's having those conversations and then giving them examples of properties that didn't price right. And they're either still sitting there or end up selling, then end up playing the chase game down. So yeah, just having those conversations and using real life case studies with the vendors.
How are you activating the conversation, which would have been very different from 6 months ago, where everyone's chasing it, there's going to be 50 buyers on it. It's got to be a more serious tone now. And just for a label for everyone, getting to the truth is what we're speaking about. Well, we've got an owner here that's coming into a marketplace, they're terrified. And I think with everything going on right now, we can't go into these conversations in a way of, oh, well, maybe they want too much for it. And maybe it's not going to, that's our ownership of that versus getting to the truth why they are selling. Brendan, how are you activating that? What are you saying?
Well, I guess it's just asking the right questions and working out, okay, well, like sitting them down and mapping it out. Okay, so when you sell, where are we going, and talking about the next step and focusing on that more than, well, starting off focusing on the next step with them before getting into the price conversation, and then talking about the importance of the next step working. But it can't be held up by this step, and then having that conversation about price then. And just getting them talking is probably the most powerful way.
Okay, we just got someone we've got to mute there. Okay, so Brendan, thanks for sharing that, and I'll unmute you in a second. But just for everyone, this tone is really important, where you're going into the owner and you've got to take it to a national level, where you say, John and Helen, can I just ask you, if this was sold today and you got a price that allowed you to release the asset? Now, usually I would say, if you've got a price today that you're ecstatic with, that part of the dialogue has to go. Versus, if you got a price today that allowed you to release the asset, where would you be off to? And they'll give you that destination. And when do you need to be there? And this is what Brendan's saying. And if we work back through that, that means these are the steps that we've got to take. Now, coming out of dialogue, label, getting to the truth is what I want you to learn from this one. And the questioning around that is this. So John and Helen, share with me, why have you chosen now to sell in a changed marketplace right across the country with all agents on all brands? Why have you chosen now to put the property on the market? And that question becomes so important as people understand they've got to tell you the real reason for moving versus we just thought we'd try, see how it goes. It's the opposite of that. We want to get to the truth. And that truth will be, it's a job relocation. We can't afford the mortgage payments that we have now. We want to release out of that. But that first point of getting to that becomes really, really important. And then, as Brendan just said, the steps that will take you through, right through to that releasing of the asset where the property can actually be sold. So thank you for joining in. And for everyone on board now, I'm just going to do a bit of review of where I think we should be. And I'm just going to cross to my slides to do it. And I hope you've all got me on full screen view there. But I was going through our notes, and you are a part of a super coaching training review that, I look at everything we learn. And already this year, one of the first things we had to do is go through our sales agent business plan, which was that audio that we went through, which is part of your We Are Selling that comes out every Thursday. And if you went through that agent business plan, it had so much information about looking at your time within the week and how you can get the most effective use of that time versus just banging into each day as it comes. We've already discussed claiming doors and your prospecting plan, and many of you are doing very, very well with your claiming doors plan. But with claiming doors, always remember, there was those 5 tribes that we target. We had our established clients, our buyers, sellers, our investors, and then we got our orphan data, and then all the potential vendors you've had over a period of time that you needed to get on that price update and onto that sequence. From there, calls to make and what to send. Your mainstream marketing. It's more important than ever now that all the people that you are chasing, because you don't want to just bring anything to the market. You need that truth that you bring to the market. They would be on your mainstream marketing. We've discussed the skill about warming up the data. So not ringing in and catching them off guard too soon, and then make your sequence of how to find, sell, and list real estate. So that sequence we've been through many times now, but from claiming the door to signing it, it is so important that none of those steps are left out. Otherwise, you could end up with odd bods coming onto the market that you're not connected to. You haven't had that journey. And that journey is where the professional trust kicks in, that when someone's been speaking to you for so long and they've had those price conversations, they've had those price updates, it's only then you get that engagement. And I mentioned that before about the listing conversations as well, that don't release content until you've got a connection. I've got to tell you a quick funny story of another lady that we're looking after up in Queensland. And it was around the listing conversation and the closing sequence. Now, I don't want you to take this as just a way to do it, but it's interesting to see how people get people into that final yes. Now, as you know, the final execution of someone going ahead is actually the agency agreement being signed. And I was coaching this lady the other day. She'd written very, very good fees. There's no challenge there. But she was a person that didn't like doing the authority in the same presentation in the lounge room. And as you know, for a lot of you, the agreement does get done after that moment. If it is done in the lounge room, fantastic, it's a bonus. And I said to her, how are you getting around that? How are you signing up people? What is the technique to get the commitment and then the authority signed? And she said, well, after going right through everything we need to do in the preparation of the home, I explained the final sequence of what happens. And for her, the preparation of the home sequence was, we get here at 4 o'clock, my team and I, and we get the home ready for photography. We'll come in and just do that final hour, walk around, make sure everything's straight and in a position. At 5 o'clock, our floor plan person is going to turn up and get all the measurements and everything ready for the floor plan, because that's a big part of our marketing. And then at 6 o'clock, our photographer's going to come in and do that twilight photo shoot, because that's the way we like to do it. And that will give us everything we need to the following week start releasing our marketing to the purchasers. So they're the next 3 steps that I need to do. And this is where closing becomes really interesting. I said, so where do you go from there? She goes, well, I've got a little group text with my team, the floor plan and the photographer. And I say to the consumer or the purchaser, well, the potential seller, so it seems to me that you're in a position that you'd like to go ahead. And my next photo shoot day is going to be on the 12th. Are you ready to commit to the 12th? And that way I'll get the Form 6 out to you shortly, but are you ready to commit to the 12th? Yep, no, we'd like to go ahead. Okay, well, let me just confirm that that is available. I'm just going to text those, my team now. Yep, great. Yep, we can lock that in. So we're going ahead and we've locked that in. As soon as she does that, the leverage agent or the administration team is shooting back the form or preparing what they call a Form 6, we call an agency agreement, for that to go ahead. But the commitment was actually done off booking the photographer, the floor plan, and the styling team to come in, which is a really, really interesting way, if you're live in the lounge room, of getting commitment. And it makes you wonder, because when we've got our proposals that go out, we have that accept button. And I mentioned this to you before, but a lot of people have hit accept and feel, okay, I've made a decision to go ahead now and I've committed to elders. And yet we still haven't got the agreement done, which we have to do. That is a compliance key part of it. But getting those little yeses along the way becomes a huge part of getting to the truth and the trust part of the owner, so we know where we're going. Let me go back to my slide. And if you like that little technique, that was a very interesting one from the floor. Working in campaign with a multi-stage communication plan. So many times now we've discussed, let the house do the heavy lifting. So it's going live to the marketplace, but before it goes on the portal, it's Wednesday, we're going to door knock with the DL and let them know that this Saturday the property's open for the first time. Then we're going through all the buyers, sellers surrounding the property who we've communicated with before, so that we can bring to their attention what's going on in the active market. And when people say to you right now, oh, the market's not good, all the good ones are selling. Yes, we are going through adjustments on price. So we start the property a little bit higher than we'd expect the marketplace to bear. And then it's going, well, the average property is going through 3 to 5 adjustments before we get that buyer engagement level. Key point here I want you to bring up. Traditionally, when you bring a property onto the market, the owner thinks, okay, we're on for that, and we're going to stick at that. Right now, and this is part of what Brendan was saying earlier before, where we take them through those steps. What you have to do now is say, when the property comes to the market and we bring it on higher, or even when we're having the conversations with our buyers, we're going to bring it on higher than we expect the market to bear, and then adjust it until we get that buyer engagement level. Because the last thing we want to do is undersell the property, and it's our job to protect the asset. But by doing that, please don't feel we're dropping in price. What we're actually doing is finding where the price is, but we do need to do this before we go live to the portal. Once we're live to the portal, we don't want to be broadcasting to the wrong audience at the wrong time. And that's what's going on in the marketplace right now. When you look at all the properties on the portals unsold, they haven't been adjusted in line correctly with the portal search engine. So if I go to a portal today and I want to buy a property, I'm searching a certain range. If we're out of that range, we're out of the market. And I really want you to take that on board, that the portal search engine is the marketplace that people are engaged in. So if we're not getting that response, we're not getting that interest, maybe we are off the market, as in out of the range. And that's why we need to get that right before we go live to the marketplace. But I think more than ever, your set to sell meeting starts right at the beginning of the listing presentation. I know before it was like, we're number one, we're great, we're going to present and win the business. Today, it's like you're interviewing the owner to see if you're going to take it on. And just think about that for 1 second. You're interviewing the owner now, not in a way of, oh, I hope I get it. And yes, you hope you get it, but you want it in the right terms. Otherwise, it's very easy to be running around doing a lot of hours right now and not getting paid at all. And a little exercise for you. If you were to grab a sheet of paper or a whiteboard, I don't know, a lot of whiteboard players in there, and just do 2 columns, saleable, non-saleable. And when you look at your saleable, you know the owner's engaged, the commitment fees there in their spend of marketing or what they're doing to get the property ready to be showcased. But your non-saleable, you've really got to look at that and think, how do I get them onto the saleable column? Because this is the only ones you're going to make that income out of. But one thing I am seeing around the country right now is a bit of a fake stock list. Oh, I'm carrying 10. Are you? Let's look at those and just tell me why they're selling. And what did they do in the way of promotion? Oh, they didn't really want to go into that at this point. Right. So we've got a property unstyled, not great photography. The price is above and they haven't chosen to adjust at all. And that's what we're saying is our 10 listings. And I think getting to the truth of that yourself becomes really, really important. Okay, back to my points for you. So this is just your bin sequence of this year of our learning. Building your business for future listing streams. So where your business is coming from. And I love these top 10s as we go through them because it just shows you how much you've done. Marketing you, social media communications. Now, there's some great work going on with you guys with the social media space. Just not you, but I'm seeing this around the country, careful on signals. You know, people are very, very nervous and worried out there. So a supportive signal that you're sending, you know, and that could be what great property results we've had in the marketplace. But a result isn't that it went 50 grand over reserve. A result today is an owner got to move on with their plans. That's a result. And another key word for you is outcome. You know, we want to do everything we can so you can get the greatest outcome in the sale of your property. Now, as you know, some owners have accepted a price way below what they thought. And it seems to me it's about 350,000, the adjustment in the marketplace. As I look nationally, what's going on, that 350, 400 mark is where it's come back. And in some parts of Australia, and not so bad in Port, in other parts of Australia, it's really been hit hard. But the owners have accepted that and moved on with their plans. And as you know, with an owner, on the day, it's like, oh, we didn't get what we wanted. But on Monday, thank you for selling it. We can move on with our plans. You've got to focus on the plans. We've got to get the greatest outcome for you and remove it away from this signals and dialogue of an incredible price. A result today is the option that they had to move, whereas many haven't. They're stuck and they're not going anywhere. And also bring into that conversation that you've got that option now of that shift of changeover. And if they're going up in the markets, it's going to be a far better result for them. You couldn't afford not to move right now, would be another dialogue that you would use. And then finally, for this little part of it, the established client program. So more than ever now, it's very, very important that you super glue yourself to those people who know you, because the market is going to correct itself. Actually, I was in a conversation with this the other day with some economist people and people who work in those financial marketplaces. And they have a very different view to the real estate industry. They see a very, very good time coming ahead. And I said, how can that be with what we're seeing at the moment with the mortgage stress and so forth? I said, well, Lee, there's internationally things are going on as well. And since COVID, Australia's been seen as one of the safest places in the world to live. And with that, we're going to see a lot of people come into Australia who aren't borrowing money. They're turning up with the funds. And then we've got Australian residents releasing assets due to their situation. So we're going to see, we could see another big climb in the marketplace. Could be 2 years away, but you'd want to be ready for that when those people aren't releasing the asset. And, you know, a unicorn moment when you have offshore funds come in, when the borders are open and the assets are available, that's when you want to be in real estate. You know, that's when people say, that was the boom, that's when it happened. But it can only happen to anyone when they've got that connection to the established client. So yes, we know a lot of property is going to come on the market in the next few years as people release those assets. But now's your chance, your time to actually have that connection so you don't even compete against somebody else. You know, frequency of contact builds trust. Frequency of contact builds trust. And I think one of the when we look at the vendor management process, which is all about trust, one of the greatest audios ever recorded on that was an audio called Auction Craft. And I'll bring it up on screen for you for the text back. But if you text the word AC or the letters AC, and you can write this down and do it after the session, but if you text AC to 0429 272 009, that'll bring you back an audio of Danny Grant and myself discussing vendor management. It's got nothing to do with auction, but auction's the most accelerated marketing campaign you can have and one of the most important marketing campaigns you have. And I urge you to listen to that one. A lot of people have requested that in the last few months because obviously it was such a famous audio. And when you look at vendor management, and I'll grid that up for you in a moment, the management of the owner right now is the only chance of a result. The buyer's in a very different position. The vendor needs that confidence, that support, and they don't need to be in a battle with their agent about price. It's got to be those next steps and the pathway forward. And I'm going to show you a little exercise on that. That is a very important slide that I'll go through today. But just before doing that, is there any questions at this time or any chats that I need to answer? Looking at my wonderful list there, or any challenges you've got that you need help with. Over to you. All good. No questions, no key points. Tremendous. Going to take you in a vendor management exercise, and it's really a grid of how you manage an owner through a time like we're in right now. And when I bring this up on screen, I just really want you to give thought to where do you sit with that? I'll show you what I mean. Obviously, you've got me full screen. So the first part of the vendor management system obviously has to start with trust. But trust comes from, well, having professional trust comes from doing everything you said you would do in that early part of the relationship. So a great vendor tip there is ring the owner every day for the first 9 days. Say that again, ring the owner every day for the first 9 days. And that phone call isn't feedback because we haven't really done a lot. We're still in our vendor management process where we are getting the tasking done. But when you ring the owner every day for the first 9 days, it's just a quick call to say, hi, John, just letting you know the photography's been booked for tomorrow at 3:30. Hi, Helen, just letting you know the stylist has come back to us and they've got some great suggestions. Just letting you know that this has been done. Just letting you know, spoke to our team. There's a few buyers that we had on the weekend that didn't go ahead with some of those other properties, and we've got them booked in for this week as part of our preview. But the owner needs to see you sweat early versus quite often we sign it up. Yeah, we got it. Don't really need to do much now because it's in administration stage. Not to the owner. The owner's thinking, well, this is quite a common situation. The owner signs the authority. And then they're like, I think I've made the wrong decision. I should have gone with Ray White. I should have gone with First National. That's what they're thinking as soon as they sign that authority. So we've got to build those credits, build that trust. And trust is about building credits. You would have heard me say from the Complete Salesperson course that, you know, vendor management's like an emotional bank account. You get it and you put some credits in. And it could be the photography went really well, the copy's looking good, and you're building credits. And when something goes wrong, they're like, well, hang on a minute. He's done everything right to this point, and you can draw upon those credits. But the emotional bank account is important. Now, how you can build the emotional bank account is with your use of promotions. Now, I'm using the word promotions. I'm not using the words advertising. So a promotion is where you say, Helen, today I'm going to send out a text message with the link to your digital inspection to 173 people that I've been tracking over the marketplace. Now, some of these people are in a position to buy. Some of them may not have been in a position to buy, but their situation's changed. You never know what's going on with such a big group of people. But I'm going to send that out today, and see what response we get before we go onto the portals. So, and the greatest thing about warming up the property and warming up the owner for an offer is it used to be 1 week of advertising, 2 week of advertising, 3, and that's why auctions are held on the 4th week. That's a long time to be out on price and the owner getting comfortable that we're just on the market and that's the way it is. Whereas if you bring the property to the market today and you really want to work it hard and you're going to ring the owner every day for the first 9 days, and in those phone calls, you're actually going to be talking about the promotions you've done, just sent a bulk email out for this, just sent a bulk text out for that. Did a door drop with your DL and the QR code, we'll let you know the response. But you got to do it early. When that time ticks over, you'll never get it back in that professional trust. And it's just that word, promotions. And the reason promotions is important, we usually think we only need to call the owner when we've got an offer or we have some feedback or interest from the marketplace. Whereas you're far better to report on your activity. Otherwise, we fall into that category of everything you do is invisible. So you're doing all this hard work behind the scenes, meaning yourself, compliance, administration, marketing, all this is going on and you get no credits for it whatsoever. Absolutely none. Why? You didn't report it. And then when the owner, you do get an offer a week and a half, 2-3 weeks in, they go, oh, but you've done nothing. And that's because we haven't reported on the 135 tasks going on to sell a home. So a promotion could be the outgoing work or you're reporting on the tasking that you have for them as well. Questions is our next one. When we look at this grid, trust, promotions, questions. So what if we don't get the price that we're discussing now? What would make you comfortable? What's our backup plan? Have you been looking at other properties yourself? Have you noticed this one? But questions then connect to this next part, which is communications and process. So more than ever, and that's where that building credits kicks in, we need a communication process. So if you are calling them on a Monday, make sure it's got a time to it. So Helen, I'm going to call you Monday at 5 o'clock. And having a phone appointment time is very different to, yep, I'll give you a call Monday. And at 9 o'clock, where are you? 10 o'clock, haven't heard from you. 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. You know, to them, it is totally different than it is to you. You might be carrying 5, 10, 15 listings. And some of you are carrying more listings than you've ever carried at the moment. And you're trying to stay in sync with that. It's a different workload. But for the owner, it's one house only. The only home on the market in their entire suburb is them. And that phone call appointment, that communication process becomes very, very important. But let's look at some of the options around those other communications. You've got your video text message where you can go click, swipe, video. Helen, just letting you know, the people from yesterday that took a contract have called me back today. They've actually purchased another property or they've looked at another home that's been reduced in price. Those messages, those communications are so powerful. Text is powerful, but video-based text is even more powerful. Voice notes, if you're doing it out of sync of time of speaking with them. And then finally, your reporting that goes back through to them. Now, just on that, there was an audio quick tip that we did only a couple of weeks ago. And for those of you who listen to that program, every Thursday, there has been some amazing tips come out on that. But we had one about the commitment fee. And the commitment fee is different to a performance fee. So when you sell the property, you get a performance fee. A commitment fee is what funds is the owner investing to get the property looking amazing for the marketplace, so it shines above everything else. Because one thing you don't want right now is a property that is just sitting on the market versus it's been designed to sell. And that can be your styling, your marketing, whatever you're doing to get that to that highest level. But it is a great indicator. If you've got owners that are saying, oh, look, we just don't need to do that or we don't want to invest in that, and you all know you've got your funding options for doing that. But I think if you looked at your current vendors and had a look at what ones have a commitment fee and what ones don't, there's a very big outcome to the it doesn't matter to it does matter. It's definitely going to be sold and this is going to be the result for it. And that's why your communications and your process of reporting back and building those credits become a key part of what you do. Don't just ring the owner when you got feedback on an inspection or an offer. It's too wide and you're not going to get that connection you need to get the result. Okay, next part of our grid here is the reporting, and we've covered that well today, but maybe consider some different types of reporting. Don't just rely upon the agent box report, rely upon a connective report that gets you that result. Pricing and modifications. When you are working with an owner, you've got to forecast the reductions. So I may say, Helen, with the price, I want to leave it where it is right now. I don't want to change it. But on the 15th, which is 2 weeks from now, our next price would be. Very important that you work ahead of the owner so they know it's coming up. Going in there to say, oh, I need to come up and see you. And they go, oh, yeah. And then you get in there and, okay, what we need to do, you're trying to do so much in one go versus forecasting the price. 2 weeks' time from now, this is what our next price would be. And if you are modifying price, make sure you've got a plan straight after it. So Helen, by modifying the price to this, that means I can do this, 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 and that. And I'll be texting these people and calling these people. You know, it's very, very different when you've got a plan. But I think a lot of agents say, oh, we need to reduce the price to here and stop talking. And they're silent. And the owner's like, yeah, I think I need to change agent. And that's how that standoff conversation happens. If you are delivering a price reduction, you've got to have a plan. And that plan is as simple as I can now go out. There's a lot of people that we didn't reach out to because we were above their range. We've now come into that search range and I can communicate with all them and bring them through. But you've got to have a plan beyond the reduction. Okay, next point. Defining moments. I really like this. Everyone on this Zoom today has had a defining moment in their life. I'm not talking about real estate, but something's happened or something, there's a section of your life, you could be changing job or changing many things, and you think that was a defining moment for me. In the sale of a property, which is incredibly emotional and stressful for the owner, there is defining moments. The first defining moment is your effort in the first 9 days. Now, I've already mentioned this, but I'm going to bring it back up. When they sign the agreement, they quite often think or second guess themselves that they've made a mistake and they should have gone with. And as you know, all the competitors start ringing and saying things as they do to do a wonderful job and help you out. The owner has made the wrong decision. So that building credits becomes a technique in that first 9 days. But that's a defining moment, the very first part of the relationship. The next big defining moment is when the signboard goes up. That's when it gets real for an owner. And they're like, wow, there's a signboard out the front. My neighbors are watching me. The ticking clock has started. What if it doesn't sell? What are people going to think about me? So understanding these defining moments, and then it hits the net and suddenly the whole world can see it. It's another defining moment. In a marketplace right now, this is where you start layering all your techniques to get a result. But if you don't, you'll just end up with another agent selling the property. And I've never seen more second agent takeovers in my career than I'm seeing right now, where someone starts it, did all the prep, got it all warmed up, and then the relationship dissolves, the vendor sacks them, and then the second agent's coming in. And this is at the same rebound moment where you're going to get all these expireds that you're taking over. And when you're taking over an expired and you're really excited by that because you're the second agent, think about that in reverse. How do I not be this person? And it's that building credits, defining moments, and strategically working hard early to get the owner to a place where they say, and actually that audio I've given you today, Auction Craft, Danny Grant appeared on that. And at time of recording, never had an owner leave him. Had properties not sell, but never had an owner leave him in the way of you just couldn't debate the effort that was put in to sell the home versus when an owner sees cracks in the agent, you didn't get back to me, you were loose on detail, I've got to chase you all the time. That's when it all goes south. Facts and evidence. So in a marketplace like we're in right now, all you're doing is delivering facts. but you've got to know how to deliver the facts of all the properties. And you probably do this naturally, but I think it's very important that when you're doing your buyer management and the buyer says, oh, Lee, thanks for all your help, but we actually purchased a property last week. Where did you buy? Oh, we bought 35 Hay Street. Excellent home. What did you pay for that one? Oh, we paid $850. Geez, you did well. That would have been a lot higher with us. That's a great property. I do know the home. And at the end of this phone call, I'm going to shoot you a link, and that's going to show you all the surrounding sales of that property. And I'm going to update that for you every 6 months. If you're not doing it, make sure you claim the door on the spot of every buyer who does not buy from you. It is the fastest way to build future business. Yep. And as you know, if you're in this long-term, not short-term, claiming doors is all this is. That's all real estate is claiming doors. And if you've got enough doors, you've got enough power to shift as many properties as you like. But I can't believe how many buyers say they bought. We don't find out which one it was. And the reason we need to find out which one it was, we've got to report that back to our owner. So when I find out that Ray White has sold 35 Hay Street, first thing I'm going to do, I either drive past, take a photo of it and text that to the owner and say, hi, Helen, 35 Hay Street just sold to a purchaser that we brought through your home 3 weeks ago. And the price they paid was, because as you know, the owner's going to drive past 35 Hay Street and go, Ray White sold that one. Elders can't sell mine. Mine's heaps better than that one. And the whole thing falls apart. A well-informed owner is easy to manage. There is the label. A well-informed owner is easy to manage, but you've got to build the credits. You've got to have the connective reporting moments and report back on every buyer who we've had through. I was fascinated where every buyer bought and what did you pay for it? And now, which we didn't have then, claiming that door, you know, in a week, you could pick up 12, 15 doors just from the purchasers. But if you're not connected with the purchasers and you don't care if they bought or not, or it doesn't really matter, you know, delete onto the next one, that is your future door. From there, the truth. Getting to the truth is the most critical part of the vendor management process. So it starts with trust, but at the end of that, are they going to tell you the truth of what's going on behind the scenes? And by the way, while property's on the market, owners go through broadcasting. I'll explain broadcasting to you. In weeks 1 and 2, we'll never accept any less than this. We won't do that, and that's just the way it is. That was the broadcast. In weeks 3 and 4, you're still watching the broadcast of weeks 1 and 2. Whereas the owner in weeks 3 and 4 is now thinking, maybe we're not going to get that price. And if an offer does come in, maybe we should jump at it. But they won't share that part with you. Be very careful to what broadcast you are listening to. And it's so easy to remember that, and that's the way it is, versus where are they now? And that can be as simple as asking the question, Helen, how are you feeling? And just a big pause. What do you mean? How are you feeling about the property in the market? You know, I know a lot of my owners right now, we're having that conversation about how many times we'll have to adjust it to get the result, but how are you feeling about everything? The word feel is a great word versus the standoff of them saying to you, this is the price and that's it. You know, it's a very old conversation. And when we look at the grid, you know, an owner who you don't have the trust, you're not reporting on the promotions, you're not asking those great questions of how do you feel, you're not using a communication process that has excellent reporting in multimedia, you won't get the price modification. The defining moments will be missed, or the final defining moment could be a second agent coming in and selling it, which hurts. And that means we didn't get to the facts and we didn't get to the truth. And that's why that is such an important part of what we do. Questions or key learnings from the floor? What's something you picked up on today that you could be mindful of and have a consideration of modifying your technique? Because that's what we learn here is technique of communicating with the owner. What could you add? What do you need to change? What have we got? And feel free to type in chat if you're a typer. But anyone got a key learning that they'd like to share?
Sure, Lee, I'll go. It's Alison.
Alison.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Just just some little tweaks in dialogue, like, oh gosh, there was heaps. I've written like 3 pages. So yeah, just some little tweaks in the dialogue around the set to sell meeting, and then even ringing the owner every day for the first 9 days. I'm probably not doing every day, but I would say I would do most days.
Yeah, and it's a quick, those phone calls can go for 30 seconds. It's actually not a reporting phone call. They just need to hear your voice. And I tell you, I've got a property on the market at the moment, and when the agent rings, you're so excited just to hear their voice. And, we've gone through a reduction of over $500,000 on the property, but that's okay. We want to release the asset. We are moving on with different plans. So you've got to know how important it is that they just hear your voice. But that first 9 days, I believe, is the pathway to the result. Yep. It's not going to be some incredible offer coming through all the marketing. For them to get the greatest outcome, that first 9 days is so important. Now, I'm just going to go to the chat here. I will put the grid up. So call the vendor every day, first 9 days. Sweet early ring owner every day. Yep, good. Focus on the future plans. That is such a good one. The future plans of the owner and the next steps, closing through, getting them to commit to the date for the photos. So, John, this is a great pickup, isn't it? Actually, I'm so excited by this. I'm really considering making a modification to the proposals to do it. They say in Getting to Yes, which is actually a very famous book, Getting the Yes. It's a series of little yeses. But in a marketplace, any marketplace we're in, could you get an owner to commit to booking the floor plan, the photos, and the marketing as a commitment? So we're going ahead and we're going to make a commitment. Okay, I'll just confirm now. We can lock that date in with them. Yep, great. You're all confirmed. It's locked in. I will send you the agency agreement, which is the authority for us to activate everything on the compliance side. But let's get started. Let's get moving. And it's just that little movement to yes, where people think that is a massive decision. So, John, good pickup on that. Video text, getting to the truth in an app. I can't even read that one. If you get price, would release the asset. Yeah. Releasing the asset is very different to selling the property. When people think of the word sell, they're quite often forced to sell. When they release the asset, it was their choice, it was their time to do it. And from all your time with me, I'll spend a lot of time on that wording part of it. And there's just one final point that I want to bring up. And it's another technique, but it came from an audio called the blue card call. And what that is, we've just got someone. It all. I'll bring this up on the screen. It's a technique called progressive follow-up. And I just want to share this with you. There was a great agent by the name of Matt Scafidi, and he wasn't, in prospecting, Matt was pure personal. Marketing is digital. And even to the point that he was using these question cards to progress a relationship. So it was in the database, don't get me wrong, but he'd look at the progression of the conversation as he went through. And I was ringing him one night because obviously in a coaching scenario, but we recorded what the phone calls were. And I'd ring up and I'd ask this question and just tell me this about the house. And then every time I ring back after that, I had more information to the point that they would think no one knows my home better than you. Now, I'm not saying you should use cards or anything like that, but the technique's great of what's the sequence of questions and conversations that you actually use. And I'll show you what he had on screen. So obviously your vendor details and everything's in there. That's all good. Did you have the ideal time frame in mind? Where would you be off to if you got a great result? And some of these are the great questions you've listened to from coming through our dialogue. But each question just progressed to the next one. To allow me to provide some comparable surrounding sales for you, roughly what price bracket do you think it's in? And he ticked that one off and ticked that one off. but each one was just a chip and chase to get to that final grand finale of winning the business. So what do I want you to get out of that? Progressive phone calls do have a sequence to them. And you can't ask them everything all in one go. But you've got to make these phone calls anyway. And as you know from my work, I dislike the "hi, it's me, I'm touching base." But what I do like is a reasons to call list. Give thought to this because we're going to do more work on it. What's a great question you're asking that gets connection? What's another great question you're asking? You know, have you done any renovations to the property since you purchased it that you feel's added value? Now, that was a classic John McGrath question prior to going in. But in this progressive follow-up, you're chipping and chasing as if you are going in tomorrow, but you're not. And the technique makes such a better agent when you're having better phone calls, better conversations. But we will work on that in the future because I want to build some of those with you. But the progressive phone call technique is very powerful. Okay, we've come to the end of our time there. Thank you for all the key learnings that were locked in. Build those credits. Call the owner every day for the first 9 days. Use multimedia-based communications. Ask them, how are you feeling? If we did get a great result, when do you need to be there? That setup to sell is now the listing presentation. The setup to sell is now the listing presentation with a blend of all the wonderful work that we do. But thank you, everyone. Have a fantastic week, and I look forward to seeing you when I'm live in Port and take you through some of our fresh new work when I'm up there. Thank you very much. Take care.